All right, guys, let's get a seat. Okay, guys, we have a guest speaker tonight, Mr. Rick Figueroa. He's a CPA, a native Texan, businessman, and community leader who offices in Houston and resides on a ranch in Brenham with his wife of 24 years, with 2 boys, and supporting his 2 girls who attend college. He's a graduate of Texas A&M University and served people and causes across the state and nation. He is a 2-term NRA board member, recently re-elected for the 2021 years. He serves as the chairman of the Texas Department of Leasing and Regulation for the state of Texas and serves as the advisory council for the President Trump's USMCA. His other major accomplishments include Hispanic Advisory Council for the President of the United States, co-founder and speaker of the Impact Conference, 2017 Republican Party of Texas Volunteer of the Year, 2016 National Hispanic Coalition for the Trump campaign member, Republican Party of Texas, State Republican Executive Committee Representative, and from 2016 to 2020, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations, appointed by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Now I present you Mr. Rick Figueroa.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Can you hear me without the mic?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm gonna try to get to you guys without having this flag. Good evening. How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
What an honor. I recognize all the veterans in the room, but that'd be all y'all. So first, thank you guys. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for your sacrifice, and we so much appreciate it. Andy's a very good friend of mine, and he asked me to come speak here, and I thought to myself, what do I need to say to guys that have been through hell and back? And what do you say to? So my hope tonight is just to kind of give you a little background of what I'm doing, kind of give you some inside baseball with the NRA. That's just Q&A me, and I'm used to it. So I've been on CNN. I don't think there's anything you can throw at me that I hadn't seen before. So I grew up in Bay City. I'm the youngest of 8, and my classic story is it took my mother 8 times to get it right, but she got it right the 8th time. And so not far from here. Worked in the rice fields and ranches many times, and went to Wharton County Junior College and Texas A&M University, which is, God's country right there. And I was able to graduate there and get my master's, and worked here in Houston. And politics kind of snuck up on me. For my business is I'm a wealth manager. I manage wealth, basically about $300 million in assets. I have a great team. Kelly's back there. She's on our team. She does a great job, and we work together. And we try to make personal, profound impact in people's lives. But politics kind of snuck in because most of my clients are of the wealthier side. And they're not poor people that are paying for $500 lunches to go to lunch with the governor, right? So, but I learned very quickly, right? There's an assumption. There's 2 big false assumptions that people make about politics. One, that common sense prevails in politics, which is a bad thing. Common sense does not prevail in politics. And number 2, you assume the people that are in office kind of know what they're doing. And the people will sleep, they'll go to bed every night thinking, okay, well, they made the vetting process, and that's a big deal. And I awoke into that. And so that began my whole walk into politics. I worked for RPT for a while. I did their engagement, and then to the 2016 convention, when Trump was nominated as the candidate for president, I got involved with NRA. And I grew up on a ranch, and so we always had a sidearm for varmints or whatever we had. But guns have never been my thing. I have a ranch in Brenham. I have a wife and 4 kids, and we go hunting all the time. We enjoy it. But what awoke me to this is that there was such a vitriol towards gun ownership, and I couldn't really figure it out. Right? It kind of spooked me a little bit because I couldn't figure out why people had this idea that gun ownership was bad. And until all of a sudden I thought to myself, nobody's really had a conversation with them. Nobody's really had a conversation with people, especially people in the minority community. Right? I always tell people I go hunting in South Texas, and I tell people all day long, you can't throw a stick or a rock without hitting a Hispanic with a gun in South Texas during deer season. You can't. But they have no idea the power and the influence and the protection the NRA provides for them to hold that gun, to hold that weapon in their hand. And so it's just a big deal. And so as I got involved more and more with the NRA, they asked me to come up to Washington to work with them a little bit, and I talked with Wayne, Wayne LaPierre, and I talked to a couple of the executives up there and a couple of board members, and I just started thinking to myself, we know for two facts that if we don't awaken the minority community to the preciousness of the Second Amendment, we'll lose our first very quickly, right? And I always tell people, I'm in love with the second because I want to keep my first, right? And those two things are very much hand in glove. And so as I worked into the outreach for the NRA, I became a board member. I was blessed enough to be elected, which was a feat in itself, and in the middle of this crazy storm that you've been hearing about the NRA. So that's kind of my background. Now a little bit of the NRA. So as we've kind of faced this New York Attorney General, these are the same people that put Black Lives Matter in front of the Trump office building. So you can think about the mindset that these guys have had. You know, we have never had a better year of recruitment. That we raised the day after that whole Attorney General lawsuit came out, we had 100,000 memberships. 100,000 people joined the next day, and a $10 million influx in donations. Now, it awoken a lot of people to the threat, basically. And in investment, I always tell people, most people are 10 times more likely to react to pain than pleasure. And so in the stock market, I call it loss, right? So the joy of making $1 is 1/10 the pain of the joy of the pain of losing $1. So if I lose $1 for you, you're 10 times as mad at me, versus if I make you $1, you're only 1 times happy for me. You see what I'm saying? So politicians, activists, people know that. The problem is that we haven't used those pain points. Well, the AG from New York basically awoken pain point, and they had taken it, and they've taken a strong stance against the NRA, and it woke a lot of people who realized the preciousness of gun rights. The Bloomberg has spent $1 billion over the last 10 years, $1 billion fighting the NRA in every avenue, trying to undermine it covertly and overtly. He has made it one of his single most focused political objective is to dismantle the NRA. And we've fought him with tens of millions, he's fought us with billions of dollars, which is a big deal. But make no mistake about it, the fight is real, and the war will not change. It's going to be here for a long time. Now, the one thing that I tell you is I go across speaking across the country. There used to be a conversation about, hey, look, why do you need a gun? Just call the police. I don't hear that conversation anymore. That conversation doesn't even exist. It has been played out, and that whole experiment of, hey, you don't need a gun, the police will show up. It's played out in Portland, Chicago, it's played out in New York, it's played out in various areas, and people understand that they have to be able to defend themselves, and the power of that is instilled in the Second Amendment. So I am very well set to make sure that the NRA stays front and center in doing what it has to do. We have our challenges. There needs to be a revitalization, there needs to be an awakening, and the NRA needs to figure out how to do things better. I completely agree with you. And I'm newly in this board, right? I mean, I will tell you that I'm walking into the storm, but I'll tell you that I never enjoy I've never enjoyed a better opportunity, check that, is when you walk in the storm, because the vacuum is there to make a great impact. If an organization is running well, there's really no need for it, right? So I'm excited about that. First Responders Night, a good friend of mine, I worked with Oz guys, Mark Goss, and Andy's known Mark for a while too as well. He came out to the ranch, he was in Benghazi during the 13 hours of Benghazi. When tonight he'll be speaking, and so the president is going to focus tonight on the warriors like yourselves and what you've done and how you've kept our freedom, because I think what's happening is a generation, 2 generations beneath you has marginalized the sacrifices that have been taken to make them as comfortable as they are with protesting and doing the things they want to do, and how they've spit on the history and traditions of our country. So we're in a battle, and so we will have to fight tooth and nail. We will have to take on every last. And once we get past this COVID, once we get past it, and we will get past this COVID, this will pass. Once we get past this whole election, this cycle, I believe there will be a great awakening, and I think there'll be reformulation of how Americans see themselves. Because most people say the galvanization of America has happened during wars, right? the galvanization of America happens in wars. I agree. But this war is different. It's a civil war. It's within ourselves. And I hope and I pray that the galvanization of America will occur because of this war, and that we'll be able to move forward, and people will awaken that they need to stand and fight. They can't just walk and be silent anymore. So thank you guys for being here. I wanted to ask a Q&A, but Andy, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Commander, it's always a pleasure. I want to keep it short, but any questions?
You think there's any merit to this case in New York?
Repeat the question.
Do you think there's any merit to this case in New York? Now, the AG for New York is tried. Actually, go back, stand by. There was an article written by the ACLU. I'm sure you remember the ACLU, right? ACLU, a Washington Journal, August 26, 2020. And basically, the NRA has the right to exist. That was the quote from the ACLU. And the premise is that no government should be allowed to destroy the formation and ability for people to get together. And so, you know, I think it's going to be a fight, but I think for all intents and purposes, it's a political play.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's not a fundamental play. If it was a fundamental play, it would have happened a lot sooner. It was strategic, and when it was applied, it was meant to disable the NRA and disengage them from the fight for the presidency. And so that it'll probably acquiesce into some back channel after November. But when the ACLU and the NRA on the same page, that's a hell of a deal. I mean, and so that's you can look it up on the Washington Post, and they realize that, hey, you know what? If the AG for New York can dismantle the NRA, the AG for Texas can dismantle the ACLU. You know, right. And so they realize the Pandora box that could be open. So I'm not sure, but I would tell you that I think this thing will go away by November, end of November. It's a great question. Yes, sir.
Follow up on that. The thing that really worries me about the NRA AG New York thing is all those New York judges. So unless it gets into a federal court, I guess it could be appealed up there.
So they're going through discovery.
Repeat the question.
You're worried about the New York judges, right? I'm worried about all judges.
Well, yeah.
Not just New York. Any judge, right? Any judge that feels they have the right to legislate from the bench, I think is just right. I think that whole thing, whether it's conservative or liberal, it didn't matter. That whole legislative bench thing is a destructive. It breaks down one of the DNAs of our branches. So, yeah, but it's going to play out through all the way to the Supreme Court. It'll play out through the Supreme Court, and my prayer is that the judges will figure out as they go through the higher courts that it was just a political hit job, basically, is all it is. And the federal government can't dismantle the ability for citizens to assemble. They can't do that at their political choice. It just doesn't work. They'll work on some sort of angle of they violated some nonprofit law, but in the end game, it's all about politics, and so I think it'll get exposed. So they may win a local court case, they may do that, but again, it'll play out through appeals. Yes, sir?
Glad you're an Aggie.
Is there another person to be? I don't know. Glad to be an Aggie. Well, you guys, is there any other questions? Yes, sir.
My wife just texted me, so hold on, let me get my train.
Go ahead.
So you had a good influx of memberships, donations right after the event, like you said before. Has that continued on?
It has. We'll have a positive this year. Yes, we'll have a net positive this year. Our office got dismantled because of COVID.
Right.
We got sent, throughout the.
Yeah.
So the board meeting got canceled in Nashville. Was it Nashville? I think it was Nashville. Yeah, it was Nashville. I can't even remember. It feels like this year's been like a 10-year long. It really has. I can't even remember. So our board meeting in May and our annual convention was canceled, and then was rescheduled again for Springfield, Missouri, which is where the museum. And then now we're going to be in Arizona, and so that's where Phoenix. I think it's going to be. Right. somewhere on, I'm not sure where it's gonna, I'll have to look it up. But, yeah, the net positive has been good. Look, I mean, go to Bass Pro Shop.
Oh, yeah.
Try to buy a gun.
Go to Walmart.
Go get some bullets,
Go to
right?
Walmart.
Go to Walmart, right? I mean, the CHO classes are full. I have there's a group of ladies that want to take the class that they're Hispanic Republicans in Houston, right? Actually, Dan Crenshaw's stepmom, who leads it, right? Carmen Crenshaw. She calls me up and she says, Rick, with her Latin accent. Okay. I wanted to get my CHO. I said, okay. So I had to find her instructor, and every instructor I called was like, I'm booked. And so, you know, I think that if nothing else, right, when we're fighting a war on toilet paper, you know, paper towels and sanitizer, there's a very much an awakening when they see, you know, the picture that I keep thinking is the couple in St. Louis, right? They stand there on their home, right? Now, granted, him waving that weapon the way he did was, God love him, but man, you could tell he was a lawyer. Yeah. I'm like, I was hoping he wouldn't shoot himself, much as anybody else. Like, he's waving that assault rifle, I'm like, and his wife is waving the pistol with her finger on the trigger. I'm just like, God, could you have picked anybody else? Yeah. But God love him, God chose him, right? Yeah. They stand there on the ground fighting their castle doctrine, right? People breaking their gates, right? And they're armed, but nobody shows video of that, right? And then they get prosecuted. So I can't make a commercial for NRA better than that. Can you? I mean, think about that. I mean, can you build a commercial better for the NRA than those you know? And they were speaking at the convention, but it was just a tremendous boost, and people actually saw, hey, you know what? This is bad. Yeah. I mean, when people don't feel safe sitting in their home, that's a challenge.
I have a follow-up.
Yes, sir.
Like in the White House, you know. Geographically speaking, do you know where the biggest growth pockets are within the country of joining the NRA? Is there have you guys done analysis? That'd be
I'd have to research it, but I can get to Andy.
I just thought that'd be an interesting thing, you know, with what's going on the West Coast and stuff like that. If you saw different,
I don't know the geographic,
or
but
there's an association. You know what I'm saying?
Right. There is a young group that are starting to gather membership, so we're getting younger, which is a huge opportunity, right?
Oh,
I mean, so but geographically, I don't have. I can get. It'll take me a phone call and I get you those numbers, but for sure I can get you those numbers, which is a great question. The heartland has always been the place for the NRA, right? It's not been New York or LA, but you know, these major cities. I skipped another commander's going to yank me, but I'm going to give you this story real quick. So the reason I got involved, he's a good guy, I know he's good. The reason I got involved is, you're not going to believe me, but this is the truest story I can tell you. I was called by the Black Mayors Association, okay? And they notified me and they said, hey, Rick, we'd like to meet with the NRA. And I literally, this was 2016, I said, no, just want to clarify, I'm not black or a member of the NRA, so why are you calling me, right? I mean, I had no idea what the scenario. And I said, why did you call me? She goes, you're the only one who turned our phone call. I said, so I called the NRA, the executive director. I said, this seems like a layup. I mean, most people think of the NRA, they think of some Billy Bob out there with a gun rack on the back of his truck, like a big, 44 Magnum sticker. I said, but there are inner city moms, black Hispanic moms, who are scared for their lives. Yeah. It's not River Oaks that's getting robbed. It's the body on the hood. They want to defend their babies. They want to defend their city. They need to learn. They need to be able to be taught. I said, this is a hand-in-glove movement. And so that started the relationship with the Black Guns Matter movement, and then that whole initiative took off, and that's kind of what, but it was just an opportunity for people who I thought, man, if anybody needs the ability to defend themselves, it's somebody who lives in the inner city of Chicago or the inner city of New York, inner city of Houston, who sits there every day and hears gunfire. And so it really worked, and that to me, that is something that the core competency of the NRA needs to awaken to, and that it has. So I'm excited about it. Is that it?
Thank you,
Commander.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
God bless.